Greeting YouTube. Today I'm going to be talking about how the Republican Party has been making Congress itself unable to do its job. This is from an article called The Big Lobotomy, How Republicans Made Congress Stupid. I'm going to be reading a passage. A quick refresher, in 1995, after winning a majority in the House for the first time in 40 years, one of the first things the new Republican House leadership did was cut Congress's workforce. They cut the professional staff, the lawyers, economists, and investigators who work for the committees rather than individual members, by a third. They reduced the legislative support staff, the auditors, analysts, and subject matter experts at the Governmental Accountability Office, the GAO, and the Congressional Research Service, CRS, and so on, by a third too, and killed off the Office of Technical Assessment, the ATO, entirely. And they fundamentally dismantled the old committee structure, centralizing power in the House Speaker's office and discouraging members and their staff from performing their own policy research. The Republicans who took over the Senate in 1995 were less draconian, cutting committee staff by about 16% and leaving the committee system largely in place. Today, the GAO and the CRS, which serve both House and Senate, are each operating at about 80% of their 1979 capacity, while Senate committee staffs have rebounded somewhat under Democratic control. Every single House Standing Committee committee had fewer staffers in 2009 than in 1994. Since 2011, with a Tea Party radicalized GOP back in control of the House, Congress has cut the budget by a whopping 20%, a far higher ratio than any other federal agency, leading predictably to staff layoffs, hiring, and salary freezes, and drooping morale. Now, this was by design. The goal here is to prove themselves right. Now, the Republicans, the conservatives, and the Democratic conservatives that are allies of the Republicans, and the Tea Party and the Libertarians, who are all also allies of the Republicans, have been trying for decades to prove that the government, particularly the federal government, is broken, that it cannot work. Except the government continued to work. So to prove their point, the Republicans have gone out of their way to break the government so that it cannot work. And when it becomes less efficient, they use that as evidence that they are right, which they then defund things further because, well, it's not working. Obviously, they can't handle the money we're giving them now. We just need to defund these policies and get them out of the hands of the federal government and into the hands of the states or into privatization, which then handicaps the government even further, breaking it further, and then, again, proving the point of the Republicans. If the Republicans had left things alone in 1995 and had not become the party of the swinging sledgehammers and obstruction, we would be better off now than we were then. We would be better off now if we had a functioning federal government. But the Republicans and their allies have been doing everything in their power to destroy the government in an attempt to prove their point. Since it wasn't failing fast enough for their tastes, they pushed it over the edge to make sure that it would fail. So rather than fix the things that did not work, and I'm not saying it was perfect, I'm not saying it didn't need to be tuned here and there and things reconfigured in certain circumstances. I do. I think all systems can be improved. There is no such thing as a perfect process. But instead of fixing those things, their policy has been to defund them, to destroy them, to break them, to underman them, to eliminate research and the experts that they need to do the proper type of legislative research that is required to do the job of government, to eliminate all that stuff. To have it just be the policies handed to them by the private corporations. Who needs to write legislation when you know that your buddies over at Big Oil will write the legislation for you that will benefit Big Oil? So you don't need those staffers. We don't get rid of them. It'll make the budget look smaller. Everyone will be happy. Except no. We need independent processes. We need people that are not beholden to private corporations, that are beholden to the American people. Because that's what this is about. Representing the American people and doing what is best for the American people. Not doing what is best for Congress, not as doing what is best for the private corporations, not what's doing best for the Congress people in particular. It is doing what is best for the country. And what's doing best for the country is a functioning government. Now, one of the things that drives me mad, particularly when it comes to politicians of the conservative stripe, most of which are Republican, some of which are Democrat, is the whole concept that a person, because they are a good businessman or businesswoman, would make a good congressperson. Bull! I want people who are dedicated to serving the American people. I want career politicians. I want career people who went to school to get political science degrees, who graduated from school with political science degrees, and then went into the public service sector. They became part of the government. That is what their job was from day one after graduation. Serving the American people. That's who I want to be in Congress. Business people make crappy political leaders. Why? Because if you own a corporation and you don't like Bob, you fire Bob. Oh, Bob didn't follow the rules. Well, bye, Bob. You can't do that in a country. If someone doesn't follow the rules the way you like them, or the way the rules are written, you still have to deal with them, because they are all citizens. So the concept that because you are a business person makes you a good politician is utter crap. And this whole slashing funding and undercutting things doesn't even work in the private sector. I can tell you this. I've seen it. It's horrible. And it doesn't work in the federal government. The private sector solutions don't work in the private sector. They just break things which collapse, and then we, the people, have to bail them out. And it doesn't work in the federal government. Breaking things is not the solution. Fixing things is the solution. And you fix things by having the proper kinds of people on your staffs. Lawyers and experts and economists. Ones who are going to serve the American people, not serve the interests of private corporations. So this has all been part of the Republican plan from day one. To break the government to the point where it completely and utterly fails so they can hand over the running of the American people, of our entire nation, of America itself, to private entities. That is their goal. To take all the tax dollars that is gathered from us, we the people, and to put it in the pockets of private corporations. That is their design. And we need to stop them. And the first thing we can do to stop them, the absolute first thing we can do to stop them, is make sure that no one in America ever, for the rest of history, votes for the GOP.